Hey, today we got more complex numbers. We did addition, subtraction yesterday and some basic things and talked about what they were. Now we're going to do a few more things with the complex numbers or imaginary number I. One thing to remember as we start, we're going to do multiplication first today. And one thing I really want you to remember is what it says in that parentheses right there. We mentioned it yesterday, huge deal today though, and that is this. That is the fact that I squared is -1. Every time you see I squared, it's -1. Don't forget I squared is -1. Okay, so this first one is just flat out distributive property. I'm going to distribute the 4i times a -6, make it 24i negative. And then 4i times I is 4i squared. You are never ever allowed to leave an exponent on an I in an answer. Remember that I squared is -1. So that I squared out there's really -1 times the 4, which makes it -4. And we're always going to write the real part first and the imaginary part second. So that's how we're going to write our answer right there, -4 minus 24i. All right, the second one, even though we haven't done this year, you've done this method a lot. This is FOIL method. It's two binomials here, so I'm about to do FOIL. F stands for first, so I'm doing the 9 times a -4. That's -36. I'm going outer, which are those two, which would be 63i. I'm going inner, which are those two, which would be positive 8i. Then I'm going last, which are these two, which would be -14i squared. Now, when you get there, there's a couple things you can do. One is you can add the 63i and the 8i, which is going to give you 71i. Now, don't forget there's an I squared there, which is really -1. So -1 times -14 is +14. Add that to the -36, and you get -22 plus 71i. And there you go. Standard form, that's what your answer is going to look like. I want to show you one more of those in FOIL, using FOIL. I'm going first, these two, 15. Going outer or outside, which are those two, -3i. Going inner or inside, plus 5i. Then I'm going last, which are those two, which is -I squared. All right, so again, you've got the same two things to happen. I got a -3i and a positive 5i. That's positive 2i. I have an I squared, which is really -1. And if you do minus -1, it's really +1. So I'm going to add that +1 to the 15 at the beginning and make it 16 plus 2i. Okay, I'm talking a lot, and I'm hoping you're kind of following along because I'm not showing every single little step. Showing enough, talking a lot. There you go. Let's see what's next. Next thing to have you do is solve equations, which is the main reason we're doing this, by the way. Is so we can solve equations. So watch what happens here. On this first one, I'm going to move the 4 to the other side. Make it x squared equals -4. To get rid of the x squared, I'm going to take the square root. Don't forget, whenever you take the square root in an equation, you must put a plus or minus in front of your answer. And because it's a -4, you must take an I out. And when you take an I out, that just leaves the square root of 4. And the square root of 4 is 2, so it's plus or minus 2i. And it's really that simple. I should say it's simple, but it's not that difficult. Second problem, I should say. Move the 20 to the other side. Gives you -20. Divide by the 4. Negative. What you're going to find out today in today's lesson and tomorrow in class is all these are going to have imaginary answers. That's why we're doing this lesson. So take the square root. You're taking the square root of a negative number. Don't forget your plus or minus. Anytime you take the square root of a negative, you take an I out to make it positive. And when you make it positive, you get square root of 5, and you cannot break down 5. Well, then it goes into 5 is 5 and 1. You're stuck. Plus or minus I on 5. One more. We change colors one more time. Make this slide really colorful. Move the 33 over. Gives you -30. Then I'm going to divide both sides by the 5, which gives me -6. And here we are again, ready to take a square root. So I'm taking the square root of each side. That's x. Over here, don't forget the plus or minus. You got to take an I out to make it +6. You're taking out the negative when you do that. This leaves you 6 inside. You cannot break down 6. You're stuck with that. Guys, you need to check those. Sometimes you may be able to break it down, so you need to always check and see if you can reduce it at all. All right, one more slide. Okay, this is the same thing. And I keep showing you one or two of these. Try to the last few days to drill in your head that when you see this word right here, when you see find the zeros is the same, it's different, it's function notation terminology for find the answers or find the roots. Or another word for that is x-intercepts. X-intercepts, zeros, solutions, roots, they all mean the same thing. So when you give you a function like this one and it says find the zeros, you're really just going to put a 0 where the y is. Remember, f of x is just another notation for y. And then when I write this down, it's the same kind of equation we just got finished doing. Okay, so I'm going to move the 125 over there. It becomes positive 125. I could have moved the x squared also, I guess. Divide by negative 5 gives me negative 25 when I divide. Now I got to take the square root. Don't forget your plus or minus. Take out the I. I should have written it there. When I take out the I, it makes it positive in there. And you know what the square root of 25 is? It's 5. So my final answer are plus or minus 5i. Two solutions, positive 5i and negative 5i. And we'll probably write it this way. It'll ask us what's the zeros. Well, the zeros are plus or minus 5i. Okay, so there you go. That's a terrible 5. There we go. All right, so zeros. If it says find the zeros, it just means solve. It means find the solutions, find the answers, find the x-intercepts. They all mean the same thing. Different terminology, same numbers. All right, hope you're good with that. We'll work on all these kind of problems in class tomorrow like we always do. Look forward to seeing you. See you, bye.